Everyone, thanks for joining today. Today we want to talk about some early work that the team is doing of establishing upstream CI. The goal we're trying to go after is we want to have a lightweight way that we can run tests on a laptop, also be able to run them on GitHub PRs. It's essentially what we're going for. And David is going to share some early work and some approaches that we're looking into right now. So David, all yours.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about Tackle2 and the future with GitHub Actions. So we'll give a little bit of a background and the problem that we're trying to solve with this approach, discuss some alternatives we considered, the proposed architecture, what we're driving after so that we can get some feedback, some early milestones that we're looking towards to address this need, and then leave it open for questions or feedback on the direction. So just to give like a quick objective, the objective here is to provide a simple and extensible CI/CD architecture for Tackle2 that addresses a few issues. It brings the test considerations into the development cycle, make the test scripts the same as the development scripts. I know like in previous projects, what would happen is we would develop a script that would make it easy to install our application, but we never actually used it in the development cycle, and it was never actually tested. So then when a new contributor would come on, that script wouldn't work, and then development time would be spent fixing that script. So the idea is to make have one script that's used in both places in the CI and local development loops, and these scripts and tests also being used to gate PRs so that new contributors can clearly see what tests need to pass in order for their PR to come in, and to provide early detection of failures so that we don't, the sooner that we can see something is broken, the better off we are. One of the things that we'd really like to do is we'd like to reuse test infrastructure. So in the case of Tackle2, there are projects, say the add-ons. If you develop an add-on, say Windup, and you'll need the hub to be installed, you'll need the operator. So allowing other projects to deploy, to say how their piece is deployed, and reusing that in other projects, and try and make it as easy as possible for new contributors to get started. So before diving into the proposed architecture, I wanted to discuss some of the alternatives that we've thought about, considered. The first is OpenShift release. The big bonus of OpenShift release is we have a lot of experience onboarding projects into OpenShift's prow. But the big issue is that we want to verify the functionality of Tackle in vanilla cube, and OpenShift doesn't provide that. Self-hosted prow, there's been discussions about how CNCF provides the resources for CI/CD, so we could in the future consider creating our own prow instance and going that route. But there's, in the case of, say, OpenShift's prow, there's an entire team dedicated to understanding the inner workings of prow and keeping that running efficiently. So it would be a huge burden to the Tackle team to try and take on prow as it is currently. We also looked at some of the other CI systems, the Jenkins, the Travis, Circle CI, and stuff. At the end of the day, they're not a first-class citizen in GitHub, and we wanted to choose something that was easy for us to integrate into our existing workflows. So the proposed architecture, this is what we're thinking it should look like. Me and a few others have explored and tried to identify some of the things that how GitHub Actions work and how they can be shared. And we've verified that those things work, but this actual architecture is still something we're tinkering with and we're looking for feedback on. So if you have thoughts, they're more than welcome. The first idea is to introduce this Konveyor Tackle2 Actions project. And what it would do is it would hold common actions and common GitHub workflows that don't specifically belong to any project. So the example that we have here is multi-arch container image build and push workflows. So we can put that in this repo and we can reuse it in all of the other projects where we want multi-arch container builds. One of the things I didn't mention when I was talking about the CI/CD systems themselves is none of them really provide a good solution for multi-arch build and testing workflows. So the current plan is to do the testing with x86 and have these workflows to publish images for other architectures. So, and before I forget, the slides that are included have links to the different to documentation about GitHub Actions, to GitHub workflows, and the different repos. So you should be able to go through that way. So in addition to having a single home for the common actions that don't belong to a single repo, what we want to do is introduce per project actions and workflows. So in the case of Tackle2 operator, there's a couple things that need to happen. You have to install Tackle, and you need to start Minikube and set it up for Tackle to be installed, and then you need to install Tackle. And so those actions would be there in such a way that other repos can then leverage those actions. And the additional step that we're pursuing is that each of these actions would have an analog shell script or an executable that could be pulled directly and executed to say start Minikube or install Tackle. It would also be nice, like I kind of want to make Sean's day and make every project have a makefile just for him. But the idea is to have a make targets to make it easy for you to onboard, and so you can get started by, make start Minikube or make install Tackle, and we use those in CI. They're well tested. We use them in our development cycles so that a new contributor, when they grab our project, it just works when they go to use it. An important part of this is, so we reuse these actions and workflows so that we can build end-to-end tests. So in this particular example, I'm developing an end-to-end test for the windup add-on. And so you'll see that we check out the code, we start Minikube using the GitHub actions that are specified in a different repo. Then we build our container image inside that Minikube, and then we install Tackle and we override that image that we just built when we're deploying the Tackle2 operator and creating the CR. So the cool thing here is one of the nice things that was provided in OpenShift release and in Prowl, as I understand it in Cube, is the ability to have staging images that are in stage and replace them when you are doing actually going to do tests. So this would allow us to leverage the latest tested Tackle and Tackle operator and just take our windup add-on, put it into that environment, and test it. And one of the things that hasn't been validated, but one potential idea for making it so local development as possible using the same scripts that are in CI is to make it so projects that depend on that setup can just download and run individual executables. So in this particular example, I stole it from the Tackle2 operator. It had an example for pulling OPM or operator SDK if it didn't exist in a .bin directory. So this is kind of stealing off of that idea, where if we don't have the start minikube script, we just go grab it and then we run it. And that whenever we need to start minikube, we just go grab it. We have the local cache, so we're not constantly pulling it. And the reason I was proposing this route is, while bash scripts are simple, a lot of people know bash, and it's not too difficult. And if we keep these shell scripts simple, then I think it has a potential to work really well for us. One of my concerns with this approach is that if everyone is relying on Tackle2 operators start minikube scripts, then the possibility of one small change breaking a bunch of project CI is possible. But one of the things I think could mitigate that is if every CI is relying on these scripts in order to run it all, we would discover that much earlier in the process. So in this slide, I just kind of want to identify the milestones. So we've been tinkering with this idea. We've been doing it in our personal repos. And the idea of this slide deck was to kind of present it more broadly before we start submitting PRs. But this is some of the milestones that we're looking at for pursuing this. What we want to do is we want to prove the concept by introducing an end-to-end test for the windup add-on. And that will require work to be done in Tackle2 operator to make actions that the windup project would reuse. So the idea there being is the install minikube script and the start minikube and install tackle would live in Tackle2 operator, and then we would reuse it and add on to develop an end-to-end test. Once we prove that that works and this pulling shell scripts isn't miserable, what we would do is we would expand it to the Tackle2 operator so that we could have those CI checks that do the go format, the go vet, all that stuff, in addition to an end-to-end test of maybe at the beginning, it's simply deploying the operator and creating the custom resource for tackle and verifying that everything we expect to come up comes up. And once we have that, we can easily expand that to whatever way we want, whatever way the project maintainer for Tackle2 operator, however they want to test it from that place forward, I think is what we're going for. And the last is to start assimilating this and making it consumable for new projects that get added. So if we were to pick up the Tackle2, like a typo. So the Tackle2 add-on for, say, Container Advisor, when we do that, we introduce this CI approach in that project, and then we pick up Tackle2 Hub. And the hope is, before we get this far, this has either proved itself to be a good idea or it's fallen on its face and we need to reevaluate. So that is the approach and some milestones, and I'd be happy to take questions or feedback.
So my feedback is just, I'm kind of excited to see this going forward. The thing that I love is the concept that we can use this in GitHub, and we can also use this on a local environment. I think that's going to be really cool.
What triggers are going to be triggering different actions? Do we know yet? Like, sorry, let me back up. For instance, what does Hub CI run when a PR comes up, and then what does like the add-on CI run when a PR comes up to that?
Haven't actually made it that far. So the thought that we had with the windup add-on is that at a minimum, would be nice is if the operator deploys us. So we need the Minikube environment, we need Tackle to be installed, and we need to update the subscription config to override the windup image to be the one that is currently under test. So then once we create the CR for Tackle, we should get a windup running with our image that's under test. But as far as changes, what changes dictate, that's a construct that I think largely lives in the workflow itself. So I don't think I would defer that decision as far off as possible. What kind of conditionals we'll put on different workflows. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Kind of. I think what is really beneficial, especially in a system where we have a hub that has an interface that everything has to comply to, we have a bunch of plugins that we're going to be adding, and we're making this shareable, is making sure that the given tests that are running in a given workflow is testing the full integration. It's just something that I want to make sure is baked in from the start.
So your idea being the hub being installed and maybe making sure it doesn't break the windup add-on? Is that what you're saying?
Or more that the windup add-on doesn't break the hub or anything, right? Like the hub test should probably be run with an add-on installed to make sure nothing happens. If that like is even a possibility, I don't know. But when an add-on is, I think there should also be some blessed add-ons that if there's a change in the hub, those add-ons get tested in the hub. They run their tests on a hub PR to make sure that the hub doesn't break any of our blessed add-ons. I think that these things are exactly, Wes. Obviously, not every single add-on we should do that with, but I do think that there is a blessed ones that we care deeply about that we should probably add to some blessed list where the hub doesn't break these things. So I think it's important that we write down. I understand like pushing off like what the workflow does to some degree and just getting infra set up, but I do think that making sure we bake these into the workflows is going to be important.
Yeah, I really like the idea of each repo specifying the task to test their thing as an action that can then be included in other repos. So the idea in this case would be like windup might have some actions to test it, and it could be included in the hub's workflows so that based on what you're saying. I do think there are some interesting things that we can do there where maybe we find a way to make it so windup subscribes to updates of the hub such that whenever a PR is merged into hub, a workflow runs to see if it's broken now. And that way, I don't know, that would also be an interesting path to consider, I think.
Yeah, I think on every PR, it would be really nice if we knew that the full integration was going to work to a certain degree. Obviously, we need overrides for things that like we know are going to be breaking like across, right? Obviously, this isn't like foolproof, but getting the system in place early on, I think is going to be super helpful, especially if and when this scales out to lots and lots of different add-ons and lots of different projects and things.
I agree.
David, do you have any more of a feel about resource consumption and any concerns about quota. Is the understanding that with everything being open, we are okay and don't have a quota? Or do you know if there might be a quota that comes in for GitHub Actions?
My understanding is so far, and I haven't been proven wrong yet, is that the quota, the resource utilization minutes for actions or for runner minutes, whatever they call it, is for private repos and people that are paying for like GitHub Enterprise and stuff.
Good. So at this point, you've seen nothing to show it's any other understanding. It just looks like the fact that we are doing this on public ones, we think we're going to be okay for quota.
I think that we're going to be okay for quota. I still think that we're going to want to be mindful to make it so PRs aren't running for 100 minutes each time. And
the main thing going there was that if we were to, let's say we add on 20 add-ons or 40 add-ons, and we wanted to run CI for all of those, and we could only run like 200 minutes a month or something. That's where I was getting a little bit nervous, because we had that with Travis in the past, that we were blow through that quota pretty quick.
Yeah. My prayer would be by the time we get to 200 add-ons, we have the resources to start our own prowl and go down that route. But I agree.
Cool.
So I'll look for angry messages on Slack or emails. If I don't see them, then you should expect to see PRs to the projects that matter. Or the Tackle2 operator should probably expect to see PRs with some of this stuff. The idea in the short term is to stay out of the way and to make these changes invisible and focus on having a test suite for wind up in the beginning, and just all throughout the process making it consumable for other projects that need them.
Cool. Great. Thank you, David. Good stuff. Cool.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you muted, John?
Yes, I tried to end the recording, and instead of ending the recording, I disconnected myself. So that's fun. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. I'll stop the recording now. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.